Welcome to the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, where we dive deep into pressing health and fitness issues facing aging women. I'm Allie Kerr.
And I'm Shawna Kaminski. And together we'll bring candid conversations, expert advice, and personal stories that will inspire and empower you on your own wellness journey.
Hey, Shawna, are you bionic or what?
Well, I'm not fully bionic, but if you look at x-rays of my hips, I do look it because they are something to behold with both hip replacements now.
Wow, both hip replacements. That is, and knowing how fit you are, that's even more amazing. So tell me about when that all came about. Like, walk me back to how you became the bionic hip woman.
Well, it started in 21, actually probably in the fall of 20. I went on a hike in December and we did some high stepping through snow. And I thought, oh, that just jacked up my hip. And it just started bothering me ever since then. So for about 6 months, I just went from therapy to therapy, acupuncture, physio, dry needling, active release, massage. Like, I just couldn't figure it. And finally, I went to my doctor and said, I can't figure this out. And he said, well, let's do an x-ray. And lo and behold, both hips are pretty arthritic, bone on bone. My right one was, in need of replacement. And he said, the left is going to be needed as well. So that started the whole process. And once I found out that I needed hip replacement, for the first one, I just did not want to waste any time. Here in Alberta, you can get in a queue and it takes you can get it paid for by healthcare because we have healthcare coverage for it, but it would take 3 to 5 years.
So Shawna, let me clarify. Shawna's in Canada and
Yeah.
Different system there. And before we get into the actual surgery, I'm just wanting to know what was going through your head when the doctor said your hips are like bone on bone and you're this active person, healthy, just living the healthy life. And then they give you that news. Like, what is that like?
It was a little bit of a shock. I felt 100. I thought, oh my gosh, I was 58 at the time. And I thought, oh, wow, this is just something that old people experience. I've since found out that that's not always the case. But, the universe is good in that the same week I found out my dad had terminal cancer. And it just put it all in perspective. It's like, all right, you can get a replacement, you can fix this, you can be good as new, it's not a big deal. And I was, it's pretty unnerving to face a joint replacement. And that's why I feel like I've been the Pied Piper of the broken hip lately, because I did a lot of social media on it because I wanted to serve others in terms of like, help them make a decision or determine, what was I going through? What kind of pain? And I can tell you for the first hip, because I often get asked, what kind of pain was it? And it was just so indiscriminate. Sometimes it would be at the front, sometimes it would be in the glutes. I could not pinpoint it. And so I decided rather than waiting for it to be paid for by the province, I was just going to go out of pocket for the first hip because I did not want to wait around and deteriorate. So
what was the process? Because I know here what our process, as I live in Georgia in the US. And so the process for you're like, how many appointments did you go through before they said this is what needs to be done? How did what kind of, like, did they do an x-ray? Like, what was that process?
Honestly, an x-ray will tell it. An x-ray, the doctor showed me the x-ray and you can just see the bone on bone. So if hip replacement, if it's an osteo issue, it's pretty black and white.
Gotcha.
And so, my doctor put me in the queue, but I just I went home and I just knew I was not going to wait. So
Mhm.
then I sought out, there's several clinics here in Canada. It's weird in Alberta, in Canada. You cannot get private healthcare in the province you pay for public healthcare. So I had
Right.
to go to province. So I flew to Toronto. I booked a month ahead. You
Mm.
know, sadly, my dad passed. I waited until my beautiful father passed, and I had booked it and went to Toronto for 4 days and flew home on the fourth day, and boom, first one was done.
Wow. So, and so you took a plane ride right after surgery.
Yeah, and it seems like it's,
Wow, girl.
yeah, people are like, really? And honestly, so if anybody is facing hip surgery, I would highly recommend asking for the anterior approach, because what that means is that the surgeon cuts the front of the hip, yanks out the head of the femur, chops it off, puts on a prosthesis, puts on a cup within the hip socket, jams it back in, done. No muscles are cut. It's carpentry.
Rips this out and puts the, okay. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah, it's for joint replacement, it's a relatively easy surgery. For like, medical technology is amazing.
Right.
And so the recovery is quite remarkable. And
Mm.
honestly, I am no hero, but I was on very few painkillers. Like, I was on Tylenol for maybe a week, and then gabapentin for a couple of weeks because that helps with nerve pain. But I was walking the next day, stairs the next day. So flying home wasn't a big deal.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
so you had the first one done, and then you got through that. It sounds like you did amazing. So then how long, and kind of walk us through that journey,
Yeah.
because now you decided to do them both. So how did that come about?
So, I'm a real nut for writing everything down. So I quantified every stage of my process of recovery, not
Mhm.
necessarily because I thought that the second one would be forthcoming, but because this is just what I do. I have training diaries since I was like 20, because I'm just a nerd that way. And I returned to training, did some competitions, got back into Olympic weightlifting. And so I had surgery in August of 21, and then December of 22, my left hip started to pain me a little bit. And I thought, I know what this is.
Mm.
So I went to my doctor and talked to him, and he said, you can wait on this. And I'm like, yeah, I could. I just went and booked it for February of 23,
Mhm.
because my feeling was I could have the pain of deterioration,
Right.
possible compensations,
Yep.
and then the frustration of recovery.
Mhm.
And I wanted to be in control of the process. February, as much as I love skiing, there's a lot more things that I love in the summer, like hiking, biking, paddleboarding, kayaking, like all kinds of things. I thought, I am just going to book it so that then I can be fully recovered by the summer, and I would have less compensations. My pain level was a 1 going in to
Mm.
the second one. So I did a lot of prehab where I just strengthened the glute. I strengthened the hip flexor. Like, I went into the second surgery much stronger, because it was only like a month and a half, maybe 2 months of like semi pain, not really. Whereas it was like 6, 8 months for the first one.
Mm.
And here we are right now in recording. I am like 25 weeks out. I just
Mm.
came home from the gym, and I was just thinking, as I drove home, I thought, I feel like, well, my kids have asked, are you back to 100%? I'm like, look, I'm 60. I don't even know what 100% is, but I feel like I can do pretty much everything I did before even hip surgery 1, pain free.
Wow. Wow. Pain-free. That, and let's talk about what you did before. What was your training like before surgery one? Just so folks know what, I mean, you're a very active, athletic, you're an athlete. And tell us what that looks like for you. What do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? Well, first of all, I want to preface by saying my hips fell apart not because of my training.
Right.
Although it might have expedited the process, I thought about it. And my mom, she was a really little woman. She was like 100 pounds and she had her hips replaced. And
Yep.
in like my mom in that era, nobody worked out. She
Right. Right.
vacuumed. That would, you know what I mean? It's not like she would have worn it out from sports. So my daughter, sadly, also has some hip issues that she can probably blame on me.
Yep.
So is a genetic
Yes.
component to just basically how your hips are formed.
Yes.
So prior to my first hip replacement, lots of CrossFit, Olympic lifting. I had just kind of returned to the pool a little bit because my training for the last 6 months prior to the surgery was I had to find things to do. And so I went to swimming. So lots of weightlifting, Olympic lifting. But like I said, I want to caution people I don't want them to think, oh, I cannot do resistance training. I can't squat. I can't do these things. It'll ruin my hips. That's false. They probably helped me to maintain muscle and keep everything strong.
Right.
And,
Yeah. And you I mean, you've competed. So let's talk about like we're not talking about, and that's the other thing. Like you're a high, I don't, and I know you might not say that, but you're a high level athlete. Like you're competitive with it's not just now, but even your history, right?
yeah, I've always been super competitive in some sort of capacity. And I
Yeah.
really just took up CrossFit in my 50s and Olympic weightlifting maybe when I was 56, 57. So,
Yep.
so I'm competing in those events, but the crowd thins, and so I can be very competitive even on a national and international level in those sports because a lot of people go sit down by now, and I'm still a fool doing it all.
Well, I think that that's pretty amazing. And so how, like, tell us about some of the competitions, because I don't even know. I know that you've done some of these things and you've got some like amazing titles and things. So I want to hear. I'm curious.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, during COVID, I did a couple like online Olympic lifting events, which was great. I think one was, honestly, I don't even remember. Like I know two of them were international, but I
Yep.
had the safety of being able to do it in my garage. And my daughter is a Team Canada Olympic lifter. So, she was able to kind of coach me through it. So that was fun. I've only done one in-person Olympic weightlifting event, and that was prior to COVID. So I kind of got into it like right in the midst of COVID. So that will be my challenge to return to the platform in real person, like in real life. And I feel like I'll get to that at some point in the next year or two. Prior to Olympic weightlifting, I did CrossFit competitions, and anybody that has done CrossFit knows about the CrossFit Open and qualifying. And I think I was in the top 200 in the world in my age category for that, and did Can West. I won that big competition, and that was I was really happy with that because there was like over 900 athletes, not in my weight and age
Wow,
category.
that's
So
that horn, girl. That's amazing. And you
yeah,
started all this in your 50s as far as the Olympic weightlifting and the CrossFit. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I was a swimmer. And so I did go back to swimming, and now I'm swimming on a master's team and swam at nationals in May this year. So that was fun. And I think I placed fifth or sixth in a couple events that I swam in. And that was just a couple months after surgery. So I think
Wow.
the big thing is just, you got to just go do it. I can't say I didn't care about the results because as a competitive person, you always do.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm really just competing against me against me.
Yes, always. Yeah. Yeah.
So
And that's amazing that you did that soon after surgery. Now, what I know working with clients, working with ladies, that it is so hard for people to make the decision to actually have some type of joint surgery. So what what advice would you offer to others? Because I see ladies struggling and going through pain and pain for
oh my
years,
gosh, years. You
years.
know, and my thinking when I knew that I had to have it done first time and then especially the second time is I thought I am not as young and strong as I will ever be today.
Mm,
Today is the strongest I'm going to be. I'm going to wait 5 years and I'm 5 years older.
mm, wow.
And if I'm dealing with pain, I'm
Mm,
also going to be compensating. So if this hip is injured, I'm probably going to feel it in this shoulder. My toe is going to blow up. This knee is going to, I am just going to have compensation after compensation. I'm basically going to fall apart.
wow. Wow. And we don't realize you just talked about something that I don't know that most people have an understanding of is how it's like that domino effect and how
Yeah,
one problem in one area of the body can affect something like your toe. Like
correct.
that,
Yeah,
that's and how you may have this one problem, but if you wait, you're gonna have three or four, you know.
correct. And it might, it's like, why is this shoulder hurting? It's like, oh, maybe because this toe, I have an amazing physio, and he deals with high level athletes. I only got into him because of my daughter, but he deals with professional athletes, and he says that a lot of pitchers, that
Mm,
if they have like a shoulder injury, their opposite toe,
mm,
they got to fix that toe and their shoulder gets better.
yeah.
Like because the shin bone is connected to the knee bone is connected to the,
Yeah. And
and
things
you don't
do
really think of
fall.
that.
Yes.
And the
Yeah,
cross,
that is a biggie, like that we do put things off. We do wait. And I think some of it is fear. I mean,
yeah.
there's a lot of there. I mean, were you afraid? Like, talk to us about how did, I mean, to me, I'm just hearing you like, okay, I just decided I went for it. Any fear? Like, what were you,
Oh,
what?
yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, it's not that I just knew that that was the right thing. And going into both surgeries, I had researched where I was going, who my surgeon was. I did my homework. I did have the luxury of having some option in terms of like, choosing where and when I was going to have it done. That's not always the case, but medical technology is such that like, it's not really a gamble. It's, you have to trust your surgeon.
Yeah.
And, I just knew that the outcome of having it was going to be more positive. And
Mm,
I did not leave any room in my mind that there was going to be any kind of complication. I
yeah.
just, I mean, yes, I'm a big believer in thinking positively, but
Mm,
I am more of a believer of like not letting negative thoughts get in the way of action, because I knew that long term, the best course of action for me would be to take action now.
mhm.
So, some things you just have to do scared anyway. And then I just thought, this is an adventure. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
How was there any prep work that you did as far as, and I don't mean physically, but as far as just getting ready, getting things in order so that you could recover? Did you have any things that you learned that were helpful that you would recommend somebody do if they're going to be facing a surgery?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would highly recommend doing prehab. So if anybody is facing any kind of joint surgery, of course, like CFPT before you go. If you have a month, you can get a lot of strength building and mobility within that month prior to surgery. So I did a lot of that.
Can you
Um,
tell us a little bit more about what that means and why it's important, what it does for you?
right. So this was particularly for the second joint because I knew more. But
Mhm.
typically for hips, you need a lot of glute strength. And when you're injured, muscles around an injury tend to turn off.
Yep.
And so when I got my right done, because it had been 6 to 8 months, and for some people it's 3 to 5 years, their
Yeah.
glute,
Mhm.
yeah, would not fight. Like it just is dead. It's just like there's not much going on there.
Yeah.
So on my second surgery, I knew I got to keep this glute and hip flexor strong and active. So, just basic band work, glute work.
A lot of these things, I know some people might not know what we mean when we say hip flexor, but basically, like you said, of getting with a physical therapist who will know is your yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've helped so many people who reach out to me and in actually saying, okay, do this, do that.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to help walk people through some of the basic exercises. It's pretty hard to do on a podcast, but
Right.
it's really getting the muscles around the joint firing, because
Mhm.
once those muscles are firing, then they're after the surgery, they're not deaf. They can hear a signal and you can start to get them moving again.
Yeah,
So
you think about it like kind of like a savings account. You build some muscle so that you have, because after surgery you're going to have some downtime a little bit. Now they do typically get you up pretty
right
quickly,
away.
but those muscles have been through. I mean, the body's been through trauma, and
Yeah.
so the more you can have on the front end going in, is that helpful?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. So aside from prehab, from a physical standpoint, um, you know, having food in the fridge, having like somebody make sure that they're checking in on you. Like, honestly, I live alone. And the first time around, my son was like, okay, mom, I'm coming to live with you. Well, he was here for 2 days and it's like, like, okay, mom. I'm like, go home. It was fine. I really didn't need anything, but it was helpful to have some food prepped, because nutrition, especially nutrition, you and I were big on nutrition, but especially after surgery, you don't
Yes.
sit around eating ice cream. Like, you need to give your body lots of protein and the building blocks to recover. So and lots of food. Even though I wasn't active, I'm like, I need to get the calories in.
Yes,
So
your body's been through so much and it's got to rebuild tissue.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
having food available, just easy things, food prepped, or having someone available to help with that. And then work-wise, having your ducks in a row so that you can just not be super stressed and have, a little bit of downtime. But for hip replacement, depending on the work you're doing, if you're sedentary, you're going to be fine. You can probably, or work from home, you're going to be fine. I couldn't drive with the first one because it was right leg, but the second one I was driving right away because I didn't need that hip flexor. I could just kind of get that leg in the car and I was fine. After 2 weeks, I think I was driving.
Wow.
So,
Wow. And we talked about prehab. Let's talk about rehab, like,
yeah,
after surgery,
yeah,
because that's something that I see working with clients that sometimes they only do therapy when they're with the therapist, when
yeah.
they have to, right after surgery, or they just don't do much therapy. And what did that look like? And how has that been for you?
So both times, I went for a couple physical therapy sessions. The ones that are provided by the province are a little bit generic. So
Right.
that, and given my background, I kind of knew what to do. But I didn't want to get, I didn't want to be arrogant and think, oh, I know it all. So I did, even for the first one, go for a couple sessions just to check in. How am I doing?
Yep.
Get some ideas. And then I was like religious about doing. It's not hard. It just takes time. But what else was I going to be doing?
True story. Yeah.
Yeah, just working up to steps. And the thing is like the reason why in, a short time, in 24 weeks after this second one in particular, that I feel like I'm fully back to, full speed, even under load, is that I didn't take a break. I push the envelope just a little bit. So you have to work the muscle. You have to get the range of motion back with body weight and then slowly start loading it. So that was, even now at 25 weeks after surgery, my workout takes a long time because I do at least 20 minutes of physio, like mobility, strengthening, all the things my PT has me suggests. And then I go for PT still once a month. Just he gives me stuff so that I can keep that femur balanced within the, the center of my hip,
Yeah.
and mobility is great. So, motion is lotion. You got to move it.
Yep.
You got to be moving it in the right planes and strengthening the right muscles. It just takes time and patience, but it's so worth it.
Yeah. And I just am so thankful for you. And this is my wish for everyone, but it's not the case. I know a lot of doctors see. A lot of doctors see people that are sedentary and inactive coming in for surgery. And then it's got to be so hard to recover when you're coming from a sedentary place and then you have a surgery, excuse me. And then the recovery is, and I think that that can be, I would think that it would be harder for people that are not active.
Yeah.
And so I'm so thankful for you that we're doing activity. You're already strong, you're already fit, because we just don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what, if some listener is like, oh dang, I'm not fit, I'm not strong, I'm not active, but that's just up until now. I mean, even if you are facing some kind of surgery, there's always something that you can do. And in my rehab in particular, like there were things I couldn't do, so I focused on the things that I could.
Right.
Because I think people are like, oh, well, I can't squat, I can't go up and down stairs, I can't do this, I can't do that. Oh, but I can watch Netflix. It's like, but you're still a lot you can do. You don't have to just sit and watch movies.
Yep.
Yeah,
and let your body just deteriorate completely. It always amazes me with joint, like if something hurts, that our, particular, not everybody, obviously you're from a fit, and our, listeners probably come from different places, but some people just have the mindset of, I can't do anything because this hurts, I just can't do anything.
Yeah.
And why allow our whole body to atrophy, and that means lose muscle, lose good tissue, while we have one body part that is the problem child.
Yeah, it's kind of like that saying is like, well, if you had a flat tire, would you go slash the other 3?
Yeah.
No. You work with what you can. And then I feel very fortunate that I've regained a lot of strength and mobility. I know that as I age, that is, I will deteriorate, because we all do, but I'm going to go down fighting. I'm going to do as much as I can to stay as mobile and functional as I can, so that I can do all the things I love.
Yeah. And you do all the things. So, and I love that. I love that you do. Any other tips, any other advice that you can offer for people that may be in that boat of like, oh, this has been aching me and I know there's something not right?
Yeah, is listen. Because if there's a niggle, it's not going away. Give it.
I don't know if I've ever heard that.
But if it doesn't resolve in a week, it's probably just going to get worse. And the thing is a lot of people are like, oh, just in a freak accident, I blew my ACL. It's like, no, that knee has probably been talking to you. And that has been the weak link for probably years, but you never listened. So if you've got something that's, I'm not telling you to be a hypochondriac. I'm saying, like, go talk to your doctor or PT or chiropractor, your trusted practitioner, and listen to your body, because your body knows and it's going to tell you. And then take action. Listen to what a medical professional says, and whether you take action immediately like I did, or plan for it, or at least do some sort of strengthening exercises so that you can maybe ward off a surgery if that's what you need to do, especially if you had to wait because of finances or opportunity. But honestly, just listen to your body. That's what I would say.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your journey, because I know that that's helpful to me. I know it's helpful to so many, that the joints are just something that we're going to, if we live long enough, we're all deal with. We're just all, we just are. And so I would say our wish for folks, just to kind of sum up, is to take action, to go get it seen about, get it done. Don't wait. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And then look at it as an adventure. Like, just like, okay, well, this is the next step in my journey of improving my health. So keeping that end goal of being functional and loving your life and not sitting on the sidelines. that would be my wish for people.
Thanks for listening. You'll find me, Allie, on Instagram at Allie Kerr Fitness.
And you'll find me, Shawna, on Instagram at Shawna Kaminski. Feel free to pop us a DM with questions and or feedback.
Until next time, be healthy and be happy.